everyone, and welcome back to chapter 24, Rescue. The Emporium's decay was speeding up. The cracks in the walls grew and chunks of stone began to break away. The once shining black brick seemed dull and lifeless. Lamps had flickered out and could not be relit. Doors began to lock without explanation, and a strange illness was beginning to strike the staff. They became weak and fevered. Daniel felt it too. His connection with the shop was fading. There were frightening moments when he found himself lost and confused, only for his knowledge to return. Several times Sharp left the Emporium at night, complaining that he needed to eat. When Sharp was gone, Daniel sometimes found himself hoping that he wouldn't come back. The uneasy feeling in his gut was getting stronger, and the more time he spent with the magician, the more positively Daniel felt he was hiding something. One night, when Sharp was out, Daniel checked in on his friends. Caleb was revelling in his role as organiser. Every day he'd been sending out groups of vendors and performers to the increasingly dangerous far reaches of the Emporium. There were phantom sightings and false alarms, but no Mr. Silver, and no Ellie. "We've discovered a long-lost part of the Emporium," Caleb told Daniel. "A secret small tunnel. It'll take days to properly search it, and Ellie has gone with the expedition." "Oh, they won't find him," said Daniel, and he told Caleb about his attempt to write in the book and the door that almost ate him. "So you think Silver is alive?" said Caleb. "That's great news." "Maybe," said Daniel, "but why doesn't he want anyone to find him? What's he doing? What's he scared of?" "We should call off the search parties," said Caleb. "Agreed," said Daniel, and the thought that Ellie would finally be coming back cheered him. Oh, he'd missed her, and he'd been terrified that something would happen to her and that she'd be caught in one of the crumbling wonders as it self-destructed. He hoped she'd be able to help him work out what was going on, and just having her around would make him less nervous about spending time with Sharp. Daniel heard the screams for help on a Monday morning. He followed the noise up and around and found a corridor half caved in, blocked by falling chunks of roof and wall. The muffled ring of shattering glass spilled from a warped, twisted door near the blockage. The screams grew louder. Daniel ran to the door and tried to open it, but it was bent and jammed. He kicked at the handle again and again until at last the door burst open, revealing a palace made entirely of glass. It was beautiful. It was delicate and shimmering, but it was falling apart. Everywhere the glass was marked by crawling, inching cracks. The sound of glass popping and shattering was all around. As Daniel followed the screams, long shards fell inches from him, exploding on the floor in countless sparkling fragments. He pressed onward, dodging and weaving, until he ducked under a doorway and entering a grand dining room. His heart almost stopped. It was Anya. There was a glass blade in her shoulder. "Anya, Anya, I'm here. It's Daniel. Can you hear me?" She didn't move, didn't acknowledge him. Daniel struggled to drape her over his shoulder, and then he began to pull her away, her feet dragging on the floor as the dining room crashed down around them. Out into the main hall, and he gathered pace. As the shattering roar became unbearable, he struggled and dragged Anya through the door, jamming it shut behind him. "Help! Somebody, help!" "Daniel?" Vindicta Sharp sped towards them, blue eyes almost glowing in the dim light. "Mr. Sharp, you've got to help her." Sharp brushed Daniel aside and crouched low over Anya. "She's alive." Daniel slumped to the floor in relief. Sharp was able to remove the glass shard from Anya's shoulder. Then he muttered under his breath and traced his fingers along the outline of the gash. The torn skin began to knit together until nothing remained but the thinnest of scars. Daniel sat by the fire sipping hot tea to steady his nerves as he waited for Sharp to return. When the big man swept through the curtain from the labyrinth of corridors, Daniel leapt up. What happened? Will Anya be okay? Sharp removed his coat, hung it near the door and took a silver flask from his pocket. She should recover, but even then there's every chance she'll catch the sickness that's spreading through the staff. Without Lucien, they are rotting away just like the Emporium. It's not blood inside them, it's ink. Daniel pushed his palm against the cool glass of the window. Hot tears gathered in his eyes. Why was it that everything he loved or cared about or depended on went away in the end? Sharp said, "I don't believe there's much time left." His big hands were pressed together like he was praying. "We need to find Lucien, now." Daniel shook his head. "I've been thinking. Mr. Silver has always done what's best for this place. Why should he stop now? If I'm right and he doesn't want to be found, then there must be a reason. I trust him." "Do you trust him enough to remain here with it all collapsing around you?" said Sharp. "Look, Lucien is ill. You said so yourself. He might not be thinking clearly. He might have gone mad for all we know. If we don't find him, I promise you, everything in this shop, including your friends, will be gone. And you're going to have to start thinking about life outside the Emporium again." Daniel stared despairingly. "I don't want to leave." "Then help me." "How?" Sharp let out a deep sigh. "I know Lucien better than anyone. I know how his mind works. Perhaps if I were to study the Book of Wonders, I might find something that you have missed. The tiniest clue can make all the difference." Daniel reached for his pocket. He brought the book out and stared at the battered cover. He was tired and frightened and confused. Could Sharp be right? Was it possible Mr. Silver was losing his mind? "It is your decision," said Sharp. "If you do not wish me to have the book, I understand." He pointed to the gold watch on his wrist. "But time is running out. And consider this. How would you feel if the Emporium slipped away and you knew that you had not done everything in your power to save it, to save your friends?" Daniel's hand trembled as he clutched the book. Sharp was right. How could he ignore any chance, no matter how small, of saving his home and the people who had filled his life with magic? He held out the Book of Wonders. Sharp stared at it. He licked his lips, reached out hungry fingers. Just like that, the Book of Wonders was gone, nestling in Sharp's hands. "How can I help?" Daniel asked. Sharp tore his eyes from the book. "Oh, I insist on doing this alone, boy. I won't achieve much with you staring over my shoulder. Besides, you've been through quite an ordeal today. It's best if you rest." As Sharp spoke, Daniel's eyelids grew heavy and tiredness weighed upon his shoulders. "You'll tell me if you find anything," he managed to say through a yawn as he slumped into a dusty old armchair near the window. Sharp flashed those white teeth. "If I find what I'm looking for, boy, you will know about it. Believe me." And with that, he turned and swept through the curtain. Daniel watched after him. Somewhere in the back of his head, something was screaming out at him, but he just didn't care anymore. Tiredness wrapped around him, suffocating the world, and he curled up in the deep chair and closed his eyes. Wow. Do we trust Sharp now that he's got that Book of Wonders? We'll find out in chapter 25. See you next time.